back to the channel, and today a quick review for this. This is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. Now, this book came out in 1968, which makes it part of the new wave of science fiction. Some new exciting ideas being brought to science fiction at the time, and this one here is a dystopian sci-fi novel of about 210 to 260 pages, depending on what format you're in. If you're in like a trade paperback, it's about 210 pages. If you're in an A format paperback, more like 260. So about 75,000 words in total. So it's not the longest read. I took about 3.5 days to read this. I am a slower reader. I should think kind of two to three sittings quite easily for most readers, and less if you're a fast reader for sure. Now, this book is set in San Francisco in kind of a post-apocalyptic setting. There has been a worldwide nuclear war, and basically human beings have now colonized our solar system, and the human beings that are left on Earth are now subjected to these kind of nuclear fallout tinged weather systems that affect their procreation and their cognitive abilities. And a lot of the wildlife on Earth has suffered because of this, and certain species have become endangered or extinct. Let's just address the elephant in the room. So this is the book that the movie Blade Runner was based on. But it is very different to Blade Runner in that it has more scenes than Blade Runner the movie, has more characters than Blade Runner the movie, and it also has a different start and ending. So if you've seen the movie, you have not experienced this story. That's all I will say, even though some of the scenes are the same, and the kind of influence is very, very strong, and you can tell that Blade Runner is based directly on this book. But at the same time, you're not going to have gone through the full arc, the full story arc, unless you've read the book. So it's definitely worth reading, even if you have seen the movie. It's worth getting that out there straight away. Now, this book reads like a neo-noir. It is absolutely dripping with atmosphere, and despite some really kind of bizarre depictions throughout, Philip K. Dick's prose is actually quite tight. His humour is very sharp, and his characters are really biting at times. And the interactions between the characters are one of the high points of the novel for sure. In this novel, we ride along with Rick Deckard. He is a bounty hunter working for the San Francisco Police Department, and he basically gets paid per android that he is able to retire. He does have a kind of a standard pay as well, but it's very low, and he really needs money. So he's looking for Andes, as they call them, the androids, to retire, because for everyone he retires, he does get a bounty reward for that. Now, retire is a really interesting use of words, because what we're talking about is actually killing the androids. We're murdering the androids and calling it retiring, which is a really clever use of language there by Philip K. Dick. He's basically saying, this is all social commentary on basically, if you can no longer work, if you no longer contribute to society, what is the point of you? You might as well be dead. We might as well get rid of you. And there's a lot of kind of conversation throughout the book as to whether all of the people on these kind of hit lists are necessarily androids, or they just wanted to be kind of taken out of the way by the government, and that's kind of left open to interpretation, that we are kind of assuming that everything Rick does is above board, and that is the kind of premise we are given. Now, this is a book that's absolutely saturated. It is dripping with symbolism, and a lot of people will say, look, the symbolism in this is very heavy-handed, it's very obvious, and therefore it isn't great literature. I'll actually say that the trick here isn't necessarily identifying the symbolism when it crops up, it's keeping up with it all, because there is such a large amount of symbolism being used in this book. It's more a case of like, can you actually decipher it all as you read at your normal reading speed? Because you are going to get battered over the head with symbolism every few pages, and it is really a case of, are you actually getting everything that the author is saying to you at the speed he is saying it to you? Because this isn't the longest book. And what Dick manages to pack into such a short space of pages is kind of crazy to me, to be honest. Now, I think that this book is much more human in its tone than the movie Blade Runner. I think it does a much better job of allowing us to see a viewpoint that is more sympathetic towards the androids. I think there's a really interesting comparison there that Dick puts on the page between neurodivergent human beings living on Earth still and the androids, and how the comparison there is really relevant to today and our society, and how we treat neurodivergent people, and how we look at them, and kind of the way that androids are treated in this novel. It is a novel that can be deeply satirical at times, and the way it treats or the way it looks at human relationships and the way we treat our environment can be very satirical at times, and it won't be for everyone. But certainly, I really enjoyed my time with this book. Blade Runner is actually my favorite movie of all time, and I think this book is better than it. So I'm going to give it 5 stars.